explain everything, you know, with the breakdown of the bicameral mind. He supposed, I don't.
I think he quotes that his idea is that, well, in the Aeneid is receiving these orders from the gods, while on Odyssey, Odysseus has his own thoughts. Like it's not his.
Right. So it's your left brain telling your right brain, or vice versa. You're hearing the voices coming from the other side of your brain, and you don't realize it's you as well. You think it's someone else.
Yeah, but I think he proves it with the Iliads and the Homers as well.
Yes.
In the Iliad,
Yes.
the Aeneid gets these commands from the gods, while in Odysseus hears his own thoughts.
Right.
It's not from the gods.
I have, you know, it was a fascinating explanation. It's a fascinating book. I have no idea whether it's true. I don't know what the state of scientific discussion of this hypothesis is. That's a fascinating suggestion. Yes?
What is the oldest documentation we have of these people? Now, I don't think you have a script written by Socrates on a piece of paper sitting in any museum, do we?
No, and we don't. I guess you mean actual physical thing going
That's
back
right.
from it?
I mean, well, we assume if he wrote something, he wrote it on something.
Right.
And I don't think we have a copy of anything that Socrates or Plato wrote.
Socrates didn't write anything.
No, Plato.
What we have of Plato is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, right? And the oldest actual physically preserved things are things that were used to wrap around mummies in Egypt in the 1st century BCE is about the oldest, and also things that were buried in Pompeii and Herculaneum when a volcano erupted. And so there's a library in Herculaneum where there are, you know, bits of papyrus, and I don't know exactly the date, it's around the turn of the era. You know, and it's these half-burned things, you know, where you've got 3 letters and then a blank, and then people spending their whole scholarly career trying to fill in the gaps. So that's about as the oldest physical remains of the writing. So those two, of course, would be copies of copies. And the task of the people who work on the manuscripts that have come down to us and create the critical texts that are published on a printing press is to take different manuscripts of the same work, say the Republic of Plato, and compare them and see where the differences are and try to figure out what was the original text that Plato wrote, because in the copying, of course, mistakes would be made. And that's a nice art. It keeps a lot of people busy.
It's like an evolutionary tree.
It is an evolutionary tree. It's exactly what it is. Yes, exactly what it is. Yes?
If Epicurus believed that the gods were indifferent, did he then conclude that they had no dealings with humans?
That's correct. They just are blissfully there in the spaces between the worlds, living a life of Epicurean bliss, feeling no pain and having no worries.
So did he have any kind of creation?
No. No, because everything is made of atoms, which are eternal. Each atom always has existed, always will exist. It's uncuttable, indestructible. You can't even shave a bit off it. And the gods are made of atoms like everything else.
And so they come into existence how? Why are they constituted differently than humans?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And to me, it's a weakness of the theory, because every compound, in principle, can be broken up on the atomist theory. That's what destruction is. It's always, you know, taking the bits and sending them in different ways. So why can't anything be broken up, including the supposedly indestructible God? And how could you tell, even if there really is a being that you're perceiving in a dream, that this being is indestructible? I mean, this is a weakness of his theory, how we could actually even generate the conception of an indestructible being from something that comes to us in a dream, because it's not manifest directly from observation that some being can't be destroyed.
Well, actually, I think it is, because the observation was that you have the 4 elements on earth, and the quintessentia, the 5th one, which is on heaven, and heaven didn't change. So when the supernova came later on, that was a big, kind of a big
Okay,
poop in
the theory you're describing is not the theory of Epicurus. It's the theory of Aristotle. And they were very different theories. Aristotle thought that we lived in a finite cosmos that was spherical, with an outermost sphere of the fixed stars and inner spheres with the planets and the sun and the moon. And the quintessence, the fifth element, was from the moon out with a natural circular motion. None of that is part of Epicurus' theory. The atomists thought that the cosmos, you know, this system with the Earth, as they thought, at the center, not wrongly, and the planets and the sun and the moon and the stars going around it, was one cosmos among all sorts of them. And the universe for them was unlimited in size, and there would be world systems like this beyond the one that we're in, being generated and destroyed. So everything, you know, they didn't suppose that the cosmos that we lived in was going to exist forever. So their view of things actually is more consistent with the supernova idea. That wouldn't be a problem for the atomists. So, I mean, they had no evidence for this theory. They just, this sort of a priori argument kind of thing.
Okay, that seems to be it. Let's thank Dr. David Hitchcock.
Thank you for your attention and interesting questions and comments.